up a seat at the bar to join us for another episode of McAnally's Pubcast, a podcast exploring the fun and fantastical mind of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files series. Hosts Tanzan, Jess, and Maggie bring you another round of literary analysis on this immense, immersive, and colorful environment inhabited by Harry Dresden, the world's only licensed private investigator and professional wizard. Join an active and engaged community of new and die-hard dedicated fans focused on the fabulous themes, theories, characters, context, lore, and more. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 17.3, Under the Temporal Influence, where we are covering the novel Proven Guilty. My name is Tanzan, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hi, hi.
Thank you to our Patreon subscribers for your generous support. It's people like you who help us do what we do. If you're not yet a Patreon subscriber, sign up today and get a fuck ton of bonus content, kick-ass merch, behind-the-scenes outtakes, and more. Sign up today at patreon.com/freeflowrambling. Chapter 6. Harry and Bob contemplate taking Little Chicago out for its first test run to search for evidence of black magic.
Exciting things in this chapter, almost as cool as Slash popping up.
I totally forgot about that, Little Chicago.
No.
And then the minute I read it, I was like, yeah!
What's crazy to me is that I have never listed Proven Guilty as one of my favorite novels when asked. I've never brought it up before. I never think about it. But when I think of individual scenes and moments and events,
good moments.
they all happen in Proven Guilty. I swear to God, there's so many individual elements in this book that I am obsessed with. And when I reread my favorite scenes,
You get all
10 of them are in Proven Guilty, and I'm like,
Maybe that is your favorite book.
It was just his most recent reread, and I was like, how have I never listed this? And partially it came up because I just read it to James Marsters a few weekends ago and was asked that question too. And I was like, and then I read Proven Guilty like a few days after that, and I was like, I should have fucking said this book. Like, what's wrong with me?
Did you tell me that part? Did you tell him?
I don't know what I tell you.
Oh, what did you tell him were your favorite?
Ghost Story and Summer Night.
Does he have a favorite?
He is, no.
Is that just being diplomatic?
I think he's just, basically all he had time to say was that I haven't stopped crying since Battleground, and I was like, yeah, you and us.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. I just figured out, I was like, oh, did he ask you yours? Did you get to ask him his? But yeah, that was a very super cool. And it's too bad you weren't, because we were almost, at the time where it said it was, I was like, oh, I might be getting off in around then. And then she'd already managed to go in and get it done. I wouldn't have anyways kind of a thing. It was pretty close, but I was like, I was this close to getting to go with her for that autograph. But I'm very glad that she got to go and get it signed. That was super cool. But yeah, it's one of those things maybe where, because you never retain anything, you're always like, I don't remember. I'm like, that's why. It was like, you just have other standout things because other people are like, this is super cool. And you're like, yeah, like, but exactly, it's like you forgot that like all your own preferences are within this one.
But yes, Little Chicago, fucking amazing. So before that, I do like that Harry goes on this phone call tour with like, the amount of people he calls and has connections with are so different than like when he was doing this sort of cold calling a few books ago. Mm-hmm. We're at a whole new list of people now, and the fact that
he's got a network now, like a full-on network.
But it's just like how the network has expanded now. It's not just a couple of like, I don't know, randoms he's run into.
It's not just like Murphy and Michael. It's like now you've got Father Thorhill.
Susan's
you've got Morty. Susan's
boss
at
is
the
a
arcade.
weird one for me. Like he's kept in contact with her this whole time over this mutual like, oh, we both like have to email Susan or like.
But like yes and no, because again, I see that as not necessarily being like a direct in touch. It, like you say, even just like a business con, right? It's like you're still the editor of the supernatural newspaper that occasionally covers real supernatural stuff.
And that doesn't know that they do.
Yeah, but before
this, that may or may not.
Before,
So
I mean, it has to be a really vague relationship because you can't actually be like, hey.
In all fairness, they may or may not, because Susan's like, I know there's real shit that she, right? I mean, again.
But Susan's 1 in a million.
Susan is 1 in a million, but I'm just saying, theoretically,
but the editor,
I'm saying
like,
working for a paper like that, I was like, I can see you being open to the possibilities.
A little bit
like,
more.
Oh, I mean, is
in
right.
The know.
Is that either you know you work for a complete bullshit paper and you're just making shit up, or you're like, well, maybe it is. Like, okay, fine, this sounds pretty far-fetched. I don't necessarily believe this, but there could, right? So yes, it is weird, but not outside the realm of possibility for me. I'm like, again, I can see things like that. Like, sure, if I suddenly want to do contracty stuff, I'm like, oh, let me call up the guy that, used to be our main contractor when I worked for But yes, it is funny, though, just how far it kind of branches out that he's like, yeah, my ex's boss for, it doesn't even just say, I called the editor of the Supernatural newspaper. He's like, no, she's my ex's boss, but again.
So Billy and Morty and Butters, they make a little bit more sense. It's like, okay, yes, they've come up pretty recently and they're a little bit more...
They've got their pulse on certain supernatural shit. Yeah.
Exactly. And, we know he's seeing Butters kind of fairly often for his wizard therapy. Physical therapy, so
Butters has now been...
Everyone's in the loop these days.
Been initiated into the world exactly. So have you seen any crazy corpses that have all the entire plagues of the world all at once, Butters? Have you seen any more of those?
But, heading back a couple of books, The Summer Night.
Fix,
we haven't seen you in a while.
And I'm sorry, Billy, you thought you grew up.
Right? And I'm sorry, 11 times.
Oh, I read that and I cringed. That is not polite, sir. Not polite.
It's not even that. I was like, were you calling him on Facebook Messenger? Because no phone in the world rings 11 times anymore.
Home lines do. He probably has a home line still. It's still early enough.
Again, but Fix is like mortal or whatever. I'm like, you don't have an answering machine? Bullshit. It's funny to me that way. But I was like, I'm impressed, Fix, that your phone actually went like 11 times before some kind of voicemail answering machine didn't pick up. That's my only thing. I'm like, I see if you can call him 11 times, but that it rang 11 times.
But the 11 rings.
Well, that too. Well, I have to wonder, because like I say, when I wanted to update them, instead of trying to text all this stuff out a million times, I phoned the group chat between Shilmary, Mackenzie, and Jess. And Shilmary answered fairly quickly. And then like an hour into it, Jessica answered. And I was like, has it just been like ringing this entire time? Like, I was like, I don't know. I was like, Kenzie never did.
Rang a group thing before. Weird.
Yeah, I'm just like, it was just so funny because we were talking and all of a sudden there was this other voice that was not even an echo of anything Shilmary or I had said. And we're like, wait,
just
what?
Answered right away and not actually said anything for an hour.
There's that, but yeah, it was just funny.
I'm gonna see what these bitches say about me.
Yeah, right. Oh man. So he finally answers. And I like how it takes him a second to clue in because they haven't talked in a while. And then he's like hearing voices in the back, or a voice in the back, like, Fix, you, oh my God, you were such a scared little, like, and it's so funny when you think back to that, when the first time he ran into them in the alley and they like smacked him in the face and he's like, this song's hot. And they're like, he's Kaz, like Fix was such a spaz, the poor little guy. He was. And now he's all like, oh yeah, I'm still in bed at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon with some chick. What's up, Harry?
Living your best life there.
Which I'm like, come on, Harry, if you could do it, you'd still be in bed at 3 in the afternoon,
Fix
too.
has got some moves like Jagger.
Yeah.
He's quite happy to hear from him until he finds out that it's about the summer court. And he goes,
right. As a reminder from a couple of episodes ago, Ebenezer's concerned because how come they haven't gone to war yet?
Because the vamps are running all over the fairy world when the fairies haven't given them permission. So why haven't the fairies given them a smackdown?
What the hell, Harry? Go figure out what the fuck summer and winter are doing.
Yeah, that's why you had to fucking go on a life and death mission to fucking secure our routes through there. Mm-hmm. How come they just get
just get to do whatever they want?
What? I'm sorry, is the summer court suddenly run by Milos?
So instead of talking over the phone, Fix is like, no, stop. We're gonna meet.
And it's funny too because Harry's like, it's not like anyone could put a spell on the phone. It was like it would fuck up the phones; they wouldn't work. And Fix is like, you can still just do an ordinary mortal technological bug. And Harry's like, I guess. I'm like, oh yeah, remember all that shit the Red Court keeps doing to you? Right? Yeah.
A big advantage that they have.
A low-key bomb in a pizza box. Because
sorry, that concussion keeps kicking in.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I love how every once in a while they do remember to go here. I mean, same thing like in like Hermione and stuff like that. Bugs and things like that. I mean, that was the flip on it in that case. But exactly, right? You're like,
to be fair, the original computer bug was a real bug.
Well, there you go. Mm-hmm. That got into the works. But now
the moth would get into the cards.
So
I think.
Mention. McAnally's mention.
Whoa! Oh,
yeah. I was waiting for it too. It was like, yeah. So they agreed to meet us
They're
The next
coming
day.
here. Oh my God.
We're hosting a party. Yeah. Okay, but it's so
You listen
funny.
real hard, you can hear their conversation.
Right. Yeah. 10 seconds of silence, everybody.
Which they wouldn't understand what that means because we cut that out every
Of
time.
course we do, but that's okay.
It sometimes makes it to the outtake. It's funny enough. This one
all right.
probably will be the outtakes.
For the 3 people that are going to subscribe.
Okay, but this line, he's like, when the war broke out, someone managed to get it placed on a list of neutral territories. Someone.
I assume Mac.
I am right. I mean, first of all, he's the sole owner and proprietor of it. Secondly, it's fucking Mac.
Wasn't it already like accorded to territory prior?
It was
No.
just like a supernatural.
It was just a hangout.
It was just sort of a neutral by de facto.
Yeah, because there aren't any other like supernatural
Supernaturals
bars.
knew about it.
And you just got that little twist, right? So even like the
normies can't find it. So
well, no, but the low level or whatever, like the King
haves
Lanes
and haves and nots.
the haves and have-nots, right? Even if you only had a little bit, it was just kind of where people somehow ended up gravitating and congregating, and that was the local pub for the supernatural community. It was all it has ever been. So again, by rules of civility, people took it outside and didn't, but the same ways you would sort of in any kind of just civilized space. But then when the war broke out, then yes, it specifically became...
Totally overlooked that. That's cool.
Yes.
That's good to know.
Yes. But yeah, just the way he's like, someone managed to, like, it was this whole, like, I don't know who, I don't know how. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure nobody else would have bothered necessarily. I'm like, okay, I guess somebody else could have nominated Max as being because of the nature of it, you know what I mean? But it was just, yeah, it's just the way he says someone. I'm like, Mac is the shit. You know that already. Like, okay, we haven't
and if not Mac, Mab.
I was like, we haven't seen a shit ton, but we have already seen, like, again, right? I'm like, Lucio shows up. When's the last time do we have record of Lucio being in Chicago and all Harry's history? And she's like, yo, Mac, got anything good to drink? And he's like, fuck you, Lucio.
Yeah.
Of course, everything's good to, like, and Mab show, like, right? We've had all these little tiny cameos.
Hints.
It makes sense because everybody knows.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
So it's like you already, even without knowing a lot about Mac, you're like, other big players know who he is at the very least. Some of them have some kind of a history, whether it's professional
This
or
is more like a
jokey or
Pokestop,
respect.
and Nurse Joy is just at every single one, no matter where you are in the world. It's like every supernatural pub is being manned by Mac at the same time throughout the world.
right? Right? But yeah, it's just like someone managed to get it approved. Yeah, I wonder who that was and how that happened. Like the first step wasn't Mac being like, yo, Mab, not in my place.
Yeah, nobody's ruining my business. That's why I think if it wasn't Mac, it was just Mab just wrote it into the Accords and she's like, no one fucks with Mac. Fuck
Mab's like, yeah, right now, like, okay.
Done.
But yeah. So yeah, so
yes, once he's done with his calls, he heads
going
off
for
to
a
the
pub lunch.
sub-basement.
We're going for a pub lunch. Harry's like, yes, I love my friends. These are my contacts. Because I know if I call up my ex's boss, she's gonna take me to McAnally's.
So one of the other things, this is where I also like, where Harry realizes that he hasn't called Father Forehill or Michael. And then he tries to rationalize, and then he calls himself in his own bullshit. But then suddenly there's a no connection signal. I'm like, is this the wizard magic or is this the Lashiel getting in the way?
Totally.
I mean, both would make sense.
Yep. Oh, that's why Harry falls for it so easily.
But yeah, he wants,
Oh no.
twist my arm, yeah. Oops, I couldn't get through. Oh well, time to go.
God, hate when that happens.
Kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, she didn't hear me. Mom, it's okay if I do this right. Well, she did say no. I'm good to go. But yeah.
So here's where we find out that Harry fibbed a little bit to Murphy about his income.
Just a little.
Because,
why? Because he doesn't live with Murphy and he doesn't have to tell her everything anymore. She knows I get a paycheck. She doesn't have to know exactly how much. This was so cool the first time around.
Yes.
And I love, like, it has just like a little extra layer. It was like, makes it like the fine dining of a burger or something on the reread, where he's just hinting around it for these first few sentences while they,
I totally
we're
forgot
not
anyways,
working
of
on it
course.
again, and put me down in the, and then the big reveal.
What is it? What is it?
And just, originality. This is one of the really pure, like,
One of
Harry's the only one with
coolest
this.
thing
There's
I
I
nothing
even
to-
wrote that in my notes. I was like, the level of ingenuity of this concept is astounding. Good job, Butcher.
It's
just across fandoms and whatever.
So good. And now this does exist in like movie magic. There's a miniature Hogwarts fully built Hogwarts so that the camera can, like, you know, zoom in and do a flying aerial, and for 1,000,001 other supernatural
but
or
again,
fantasy-based things.
Not as a concept in itself. That's
But
exactly. But that's what I mean is cool. That, yeah, like, you know, very, I mean, yeah, you get, like, sure, you go into, like, Star Wars or something like that, and they've got, like, holograms of places.
Yeah,
and
no, but this little Chicago is an idea, an
practical
original.
magic
and,
is just fucking
and
great.
It's just fucking Jim Butcher and Harry Dresden. You are the two smartest motherfuckers in the world. What a cool fucking idea.
Cool fucking idea. Now, again, practically, holy fucking shit.
It's
Are
explained
you
right now how
kidding
hard
me?
this is.
Are you
I had to go and get a
kidding?
chip from every building that I want. Fucking the mulch, the trees,
Now,
the
again,
gravel.
I'm going to guess.
How do you like art, like you have to write all that shit down to make sure it's
I was
all
the
like
same thing. I was like, he had like
organized that.
100 baggies in his pocket every day coming home, like building
Like,
1, building 2, building 3. like-
Intimately, well, yeah, not even just that, like very specifically labeled, because you can't just
That's
mess
when
with
I-
it.
he's not using a camera.
No, that's when I would have had Lash doing inventory for me. I'd have been like, remember this rock, remember this.
Oh, maybe
Wait.
we just hit the nail on the head. And Harry's like, oh, gosh, shit, you just keep track of.
I was gonna say the other thing you could have done is like hire out somebody to be like hire a group of people to do it.
Yeah, but I couldn't, like,
which
you'd
is-
have to
would
trust
also
them to,
explain-
like, their
Well, but I
organization.
don't know if he says it here or later, or I'm just making it up, but I also feel like there's only a certain amount he can do to that, too, because, again, right, the
No,
more...
Bob tells him, as Chicago changes, your shit's gonna come expired.
Well, that too, but
we'll have
just
to keep
just
updating
the
it.
more layers of, right, everybody handling it and touching it and whatever before Harry gets it, right, where if he just goes and gets it
Right.
himself.
So he
right,
wouldn't-
so having people do it is, again,
dilute it.
the diluted thank you could be, and like I said, I don't know if I'm just making that up from somewhere or
Well,
whatever.
it would make sense for like the lore that
Yeah, it
we've
makes
been
sense
presented.
from everything we know.
Right, yeah, which is why I'm like, maybe they do mention it somewhere, but regardless, like, yeah, things like that, and then just, again, to be able to trust that the guy's like, I don't know, one piece of gravel looks like another piece of gravel, like, again, you wouldn't necessarily be able to trust without being able to explain and put into it. I mean, again, we all know that. Everyone's like, you work for Walmart, let's do the Walmart chat, and Walmart employees are actually, yeah, you can walk out of here with a big screen TV, I'm not even going to stop you because I don't give a shit. You know what I mean, right? It's like, you can care about where you work, but there's always a... But yeah, that's the thing that blows my mind.
Colossal project.
And I was going to say, again, I assume he's doing it kind of in a like, you know, one tree in every 100 feet or something like that is, all right, so specific important buildings. But I'm like, hopefully he didn't walk down the street and get a piece of bark from all 57 trees on the street. Hopefully it's just every 5th or 10th tree would, you know what I mean, would give him, like, again, if, say, your perspective for being able to zap into it is like, you know, 5-foot radius around each thing. Then if there's 3 trees within that 5 feet, you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of feel that they're going to overlap, right? So if you get this 5 foot and this 5 foot, even if there's 6 things in between,
and I suppose he could be
encompassed.
pickier with certain areas that are like hotbeds of
Exactly,
activity.
and I'm assuming but even that, even scaling it down a little bit to that you didn't actually go and pluck every blade of grass and I'm like, that's, like you say, that's still like 10 trees on a block instead of like 50 trees on a block, but you've still gone down that block to cover, okay, I need a piece of sidewalk to cover the sidewalk for this area, I need a piece of tree to cover the trees in this area, I need to chip off the building to cover this, like, there's, holy fuck.
You know how epic this is when Bob even says that it's cool.
Right, and Bob is like, it's kind of funny. I find it almost slightly canceling out. What's the word I'm looking for? Negating itself, yeah. Because he, like, when he comes, he's like, oh my God, like, we've been working on it, it's fine, it's good, it's whatever, and blah, 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 and you've been doing, and like a few minutes later, he's like, this is
It's
actually
not half bad.
Yeah, and I was like, well, no shit. You've just been complaining that you guys have been working your asses off on it. You're like, give me 5 minutes where I don't have to work on this. And then you're like, wow, Harry, you've done a lot of work. This is cool. I'm like, how else has he been setting it up with that? Like, it was just kind of funny
when
that
you
way.
get a chance to actually stop and reflect, right? It's different than when you've been like plugging away.
And again, if you look at it
Wait,
simply,
it is
one of those
cool.
things you're not necessarily going to read. And it kind of like how, again, every time they introduce a character, you know, they're like, oh, this is my best friend, Susie Green. I'm like, never in my life do I think about, this is my best friend, Jessica Heist. I'm like, it's Jess, or it's Jess, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they always have to introduce, or again, how often people use names. Like, you know, if I'm talking, like, say the 3 of us talking together, sure, I might use, like, Jess's name a lot because I've got Tanzan in here as well, so I can't just say you or she. But I was like, if it's just you and me, I'm not addressing you by your name very often. Yet all the time in books, they're like, come on, Jazz, you know what we're doing, or come on, Tanzan, that's not... And I'm like, I, like, 1 in a million times use somebody's name in a conversation with them. Whereas right? So I'm like, again, it's probably just first time read, whatever, you'd just be like, wow, this is super cool. But I'm like, if you think about the actual, like, if this was actually a conversation they would be having, Bob would be like, it's this fucking cool already.
Another thing that Bob says in here is that we've been working on it every single night for 6 months.
6 months.
Which means, this
July.
must have been rattling around in Harry's head for a while already because, he started this in January then? That's only a few months after the end of the last book where he was like, I need to get working on
Not
this.
too far after Halloween where he's like, okay, shit's going down. I need to be able to monitor everything everywhere because I can't...
Almost all the time since we last saw him has been spent being invested into this.
And it's funny because if you think about it, actually, the last book is one of the ones where maybe if I stop and think it through, we'll find out. But the last book, right, we're like, he had to go to the Field Museum and he had to go to the morgue and he had to go to the museum and he had to go to Wacker Street. And it just feels like there was so much running. And
when he had Morty pull up that map of dead spots
that's part
around
of why
city,
it feels like it is because we see it.
If only I could look in on these spots. Exactly. But it's
But yeah, now he's like, let me be where I can just jump around so I don't have to take 3 days to visit. But yeah, super. And again, for somebody like you say, now all of a sudden he's ramping up to be in the middle of the next big thing. I get it.
I bet you the last couple of weeks that he's shown up for D&D night with the alphas, they've been like, your miniature building, Harry, is getting...
Why did they? So it's like he's lying. It's like all of a sudden you've just leveled up big time on... But yeah, that's the thing, and I mean, there's certain things, again, it's probably not that hard to go to somebody that makes miniatures and be like, give me the Field Museum. Okay, lots of references, again, assuming that, he's not ordering this shit online and he's going to somebody in town. No problem, you live here, you work here, you're probably really familiar with it, plus it's a huge, big thing. There's so many pictures online.
99.9% of blueprints are accessible by anyone.
All of the, right, it wouldn't be that, but I mean,
is he making them? I thought he was getting somebody to make them.
Some and some. I think it's a little bit of both. Certain things, but yes, that's what I'm saying is that for him to go to somebody, I'm like, you're like, go build me the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah,
the
actual model building, but then he's the one who has to infuse the real
all the magic. And I'm sure some of the little things, some of the little trees and stuff like that he's like, I can probably put together a pine tree and infuse it with the cone from this tree. But that's what I mean, though. That's my point I'm getting to, is that to go and be like, okay, I need you to make this copy of Tanzin's house. This is kind of what it looks like. This, you know what I mean?
To a 1 to 24th scale, and don't fuck it up.
And don't fuck anything. And it's just that for all the sort of non-iconic,
but I have golden nuggets, so do it.
Well, exactly right. And what are they thinking? And again, you don't necessarily, just be like, sure, build me a house. Here.
You just punched yourself in the face, folks.
I didn't exactly.
I was noticing today you're quite flailing.
I'm
that confirms
today.
it. Because you keep hitting things, too.
Just because I knocked my headphones and my glasses off the face from the side. It was, I got an itch.
Beating on the couch.
I got an itch, and my hand started coming in before it had cleared. It's like a dog with a cone. You forget, you don't, my outline doesn't end where I think.
She just called herself a bitch.
Take when I can get. I don't get to very often, so. But yeah, so just go in and take a picture and be like, okay, build me a model of this house or something like that. Could be okay, cool. Or even just a bunch of them be like, okay, maybe he's making a little Christmas scene. He wants all these little houses. But to be coming and be like, build me this replica of a Walmart. Build me this replica. And you'd be like, the Walmart on 52nd Street? And you're like, yes, I need... What the fuck are you doing?
I'm really obsessed with Walmarts.
Well, it's just one of the first things that came out.
And you fucking...
Do you think they're actually
measure that Garden Gate Center?
I was just going to say, you were talking earlier about catchphrases and lines, but be like, how tall
Walmart.
I guess sort of assume that they're solid pieces. They're not hollow or actual insides.
I feel like
I'm straight up imagining the way
just little
engineers and architects build tiny little models.
Oh,
it's just all white paper sort of a thing.
Oh, that's funny. I tend to envision it the other way, more I would say
because I thought pewter model, so you've got a proper
that's what he does. Maybe that's why, because he does
mold, and then you fill it and then put your token piece in it, and it's a solid piece.
That's what I thought. That's how I am. You're right. Not because he does. You're right. He does say it's all made out of pewter, which is probably why exactly I envision it more when you get little miniature model,
because making the inside would be absolutely
little
completely insane.
Lead soldiers or something.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's detailing the inside of any buildings.
No, he's not detailing the inside of it. No. Mm-hmm. I am thinking yes, the outside cast of it. But I'm just saying, again, if you were a D&D place, right? They make, again, if you watch something like Critical Role, you will see the amount of scenarios, right? Bars and wooded areas and volcanoes and heat, right? So you have miniatures of, again, elves and tieflings and human beings and orcs. But again, you're like, you just want a random tavern, a random mountain, you might want this or that element. So I'm like, yeah, there's people that are very capable and can be like, no problem, I can whip you up a mountain. I'm just saying it'd be funny, right? Like, if that was you and somebody came in and they're like, oh, I need like a bunch of houses or something, you could make them up. But when they start bringing in, like, again, because you're like, I don't know, maybe this is like his mom's house and his sister's house and he's building like his own little Christmas village or something, that's kind of cool. But yeah, when you're just like random things of like, I want the 7-Eleven on the corner, I want and you were like kind of like he mentions here where he's like, oh yeah, somebody just like having like a whole model. I'm like, this would be creepy. Like, yeah, you're going to them and they're being like,
at
why?
That point, it'd be better to outsource to multiple people. So it's just like,
why do you want this random ass thing? Like, why are you coming in and getting me to make a model of everything in our city? Like, you know what I mean? Like, depending on what he says or how often or to what degree, I was like, that could be really creepy. Like, what the fuck do you want?
And then, yes, it's not just the building of Little Chicago. It's not just the collecting of all the pieces, but it's infusing it with magic to the point that it fucking has ley lines.
Right. There's ley lines in it, too.
Own ley lines. And yeah, he's
wicked.
And it's funny, in some ways you're like, this is a mass, because he does say it takes up like his whole table, and at the same time you're like, oh my God. But he also says it goes out for like 2 miles in any direction from like Burnham Harbor or whatever, which if I recall correctly is the same one. And they had their little boat accident there with the Daenerys. I think it was down in Burnham Harbor. So I don't know if that's just a main or the main or something. I'm guessing it's maybe sort of centralized too. But 2 miles both isn't a lot. I'm like, sure, when you're talking airplanes, mile high is a long way up and, they go way over. But when you're talking about, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, when I punch in, like, directions to go from my house to Jessica's and it tells me it's, like, 20 kilometers, I'm like, that's more than 2 miles. Yeah. So you're like, in some ways...
He's definitely not making it out to the Wraith's mansion, which is maybe a problem, but... I mean...
Or even if he does eventually, but again, I'm like, how much...
Could you imagine him, like, walking around trying to collect shit? I'm just going to take a little piece of your building, okay?
Yeah, right? He shows up in his landscaper uniform, and he's like, come on!
Just painting the roses.
Perfect fanfic right here. Sign up,
write that down.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So, I mean, I also like...
Excuse me, Lord Wraith. I know I seem to pop down to the deeps for 1 second. I think I left my wallet last time I was here. Don't mind me. I know. I'll be right back.
Real quick. Oh, you guys are having a meeting. I will be gone in just a minute. I just need a rock. Could one of you bleed on this for me?
You don't mind if I scrape the car a little bit here, do you? You won't notice the pains. It's fine.
So I do like to imagine the Jim Butcher was in his apartment. He's got a map of Chicago, and he's like doing a bunch of like yarn and pins, and he's like, all right, the next few books are happening in this 100-mile radius, 100-meter radius. He's like, that we're not leaving.
That's why everything happens near Cabrini Green.
Yeah, exactly. But like Jim Butcher's just like, he did this whole thing. He's like, exactly what do we have to work with? And he's like, wow, every plot in the book I want to do happens outside Little Chicago.
Shit.
All right, we're changing location. What's within 2 miles? You're going to happen here. You're going to happen here.
Harry's like, okay, given my caseload lately, this is where I'm going to start, and we'll work out from there.
New business cards no further than 2 blocks from my apartment. I'm fucking tired.
Lost objects found within my neighborhood.
Yeah. I can only afford taxis up to 4 blocks away now. It needs to be far enough away, or it needs to be close enough I can walk home.
Like free delivery within 2 kilometers. And so he's like, I can work for you, but you got to start paying for this shit, because then I have to put out to get there and do anything.
Yeah, his rate should come with a rented car now. I will need to rent a car while I do this investigation.
It's included in the retainer.
Yeah, normally you know exactly you expect to pay expenses.
How shitty is your life? You have a private detective on retainer.
Well, given some of these.
Some people, yeah.
It's like serial, like brides and grooms, and then like wacky evil monsters. Those are
Marcone tried to do it, book 1, so.
I was going to say, other than the person who's had like 7 ex-wives or whatever that he keeps having to get, but everybody else is just like evil or something to require that much, constant.
I think the man with 7 ex-wives is probably pretty evil. Well, a little suspicious there.
Depends on...
At least to the wives.
Yeah.
So Bob gives the okay to give Little Chicago a test run, and Harry tells Bob that the gatekeeper informed him of black magic and he wants to try to find find it using the new model.
Yeah.
Apparently, Bob knows who the gatekeeper is because he gives a little like, ooh,
Yeah.
that guy.
I mean, again, Bob's been around a while. He's had
Bob's
a few
job is to
owners.
know
Bob's
everyone.
job is to know everyone. He decides he's going to, take it for a test run and be like, well, let's look around. And some of this, what Bob says is how much power.
Yeah.
So his ring that we've seen before, he's like, you can probably flip a car. This is 300 times that. Like, I don't know, aren't we talking like A-bomb or something now?
No, this thing should be like vibrating on the table.
Glowing. I get, but you'd feel like Harry would, because again, he's like,
It's reactivated the plutonium because it's
Yeah.
yeah, right. All of a sudden, all those little boxes of tidbits on his counters are all like, why is the shelf melting off the wall now?
Ooh.
But okay, but
He should be able to sense it.
okay, when he shook hands with Lydia, he got like a little spot right when he touched the doorknob going into his office that Mab had like unlocked to let her. He got like a little electric
It's his
static
own
shock.
magic. He's too
When he
used to it.
Yeah, I'm like
nose
this thing's,
blindness.
you've jammed this much power into there, and you're not getting any kind of a read on that.
What I want to know is why didn't he do any test runs with small sections?
Should there not have been
first?
test
Yeah,
like
right. It
this
should have been like
this
block
is your
1,
first?
block 2, block 3.
Where it could destroy the city if it goes badly.
each step of the way, especially
And even the smallest, that's 6 months worth of work and huge amounts of effort, even if you have to start it from scratch.
that's what I was going to say.
I'm really glad he's not a programmer because, man,
right? But yeah, this is exactly it. You're like, you'd
This is
think
the problem
he
with not having a boss to report to.
sort of
do everything in
test
your
a
own
little-
timeline, and you just
right?
skip those
talk
checks and
about
balances.
hyper-focus.
Right? If you've had to build a spreadsheet or something. I kept doing it. We had this spreadsheet to keep it working, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, you know what? This is annoying and stupid because, again, there was 3 or 4 sort of cross-references to find information on this. And the gist of it basically was if we paid a deposit on something and if we got the deposit back on the return item or whatever. So it was again, things happened at different vehicles, at different dates, at different, right? So I'm I'm going to make a thing. So I'm I'm going to use some macros because that will organize shit for me and I don't have to. So I was I'm going to color code it so that this and this goes the same so that, blah, 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 blah. And I'd never really done it before. So I Google Town and I talked to my brother who's a computer programmer and all this kind of
Macros
stuff.
suck.
They can and they do, but for what I needed, I was able to get. And there was just one piece of it that wasn't working that I had to be why isn't it? He's oh, maybe try writing it this way. And I was boom, now, right. But exactly, I was every step of the way, I'm every time I would do something, I'm okay, does it work? No. Okay, does it work? No. You know what I mean? Fucking every time I changed anything, I was is it doing what I want? No, I got to do it. Is it doing what I want? No, I got to do it. So I was how can you not? I'm that was for a fucking stupid spreadsheet that had nowhere near this. And I think when I got it, it probably only had 20 or 30 lines or something of not. And I'm this is going to be way too much work to have to keep going back and forth and trying to match up. So I'm just going to let the program match everything up for me. And I was every
stupid dumb boy.
right? Every fucking time you do anything, you're checking wallpapers on your phone, you're yes, preview. How is this gonna?
Yeah,
nope, don't
right.
like that. Go to preview. Nope, don't like that. So I was how do you put this one time, literal energy and focus?
Bob
and,
said it looked good. Let's go.
and also Bob is again. That was my other point. Yeah, is that given that
I didn't even
every
know if
little,
it was going to work in the first
well,
place.
but that every time that tree grows a new leaf or a bird builds a nest, it's going to alter the right. You would be checking this constantly, right, to make sure exactly that nothing major has changed along this street as you.
Too much effort. We got things to do. Go, go, go. This is why I'm also, maybe blaming Bob for World War II. This is really cool, boss. I'm surprised you haven't shown anyone your work. Did you say that to Kemmler?
Yeah, right.
You say that to Justin Dumore? You should go adopt children so you can start signing them up for your weird zombie program.
Yeah, you
Justin
know what?
Dumore's
This is
wait
too
a
good to keep to
second.
yourself.
That
Let's
was a good idea,
globalize
yeah.
this.
What do you mean, Bob? He's a wizard. You're supposed to keep secrets. What do you mean? I'm surprised you haven't brought anyone down to your secret lair to show all your
Maybe
secret
that's just because he
stuff.
knows it's Harry, and Harry's look at this cool shit.
I know,
got.
but come on, Bob. I was what a stupid fucking suggestion. You think Bob would be the first person to be stop fucking bringing people home. What the fuck?
Yeah,
We have all this shit
it's
here.
you're finally building something cool and evil overlordy, Harry. What
Yeah,
the fuck
right.
are you doing? Showing
We're
it to
finally in Bob's purview.
why are you suddenly using it to play D&D every other week, Harry? That's not why we made this.
Bob's the real one that's been slowly influencing Harry Evil this whole time.
Evil, good. Bob has no concept. How does he know? He just is. He's just doing.
So Bob asks what exactly the gatekeeper shared and lets Harry know that he was likely intentionally vague as to present any potential paradoxes. And here's where we get into some really big
Time travel
concepts.
101.
If you
according
kill my
to the Dresden
grandpa,
files.
how was that? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm mildly surprised. I was like, you couldn't work any Back to the Future references in this? Isn't this a good time for pop culture, Harry, and da-da-da-da-da? Which was super cool because that's what
Guess the DeLorean in a few more books. Okay, wait.
But I was like, it was cool because at our expo this year, that's what we had was Back to the Future. So we had like Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and the girlfriend. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name offhand. And the DeLorean and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of cool, actually, having that here this year.
Nice.
I didn't go get to see Michael J. Fox or anything, so I was working it, but I did walk past the DeLorean a couple of times. Great Scott! Great Scott! Yeah, I don't want to alarm anybody, but Michael J. Fox is aging.
Crazy.
Yeah, he does not look the same as he did in that movie, folks, let me tell you.
Oh my God, it's only been like 40 years.
Yeah,
So,
Major illness.
starting to show. Yeah.
the rules presented here by Bob all make sense. They all seem fair, pretty good understanding. This is why we don't fucking time travel.
How do
okay?
I leave open enough things to let me do what I want to do and close off enough things that we
Right,
can't
so-
just make it simple and done?
Time travel is illegal, but the gatekeeper is cheating.
There are loopholes.
yeah.
Kind of like Harry and his fairies. I'm not mind controlling, I'm not summoning, I'm not binding. They're a fairy, not a
Harry is not the only one that lives in the
They had
area
a
of gray.
choice to take my deal. Exactly. How do we bend the rules a little bit?
So he some way, somehow could have potentially left a clue for himself from the future. That's weird.
I was going to say, you can see going forward, right? I can write a note to myself right now and, put it in a safe deposit box, not to be open for 50 years. But yeah, so how does the 50-year forward version of it get it back to?
Yeah, and how is it not cheating?
How is that
And you can employ spirits that can divine the future, which is also not cheating, or
Yeah, we've
you
had
can
the
learn how to do it
homunculus before.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can become a fortune teller psychic kind of. That's not cheating.
Or
but-
like Morty talking to the ghost.
Yeah, but you can't actively, no actual DeLoreans involved kind of a thing because that's a major. But it does. I admit that one I wondered too. I was like, how do you kind of sneak, and again, is it in the vagueness of it or whatever? But yeah, how does he enable a message to go back to without crossing over that much?
So yes, if it's done subtly, if it's done indirectly, you can get a lot of things changed and you can do it. But the point is that you can't create a paradox which would destroy your own timeline because you might just then destroy the entire world.
Which we're assuming because we can't prove it.
But on account of the fact that we're all still alive right
As
now.
Bob says, yeah, the
must
fact that
not
reality
happen.
still exists, we haven't. And I don't mind how, like I say, we were just complaining a little while ago about explaining what an attack of opportunity is and how we just totally miss Murphy's whole psychic trauma and stuff like that. This, I don't mind the whole explanation here of going back through sort of, and why Harry's I don't see why that would be a problem. Because you're again, everybody sort of by this point has heard the whole, well, if I go back in time and kill my grandfather, how was I ever born? And they take
these
us
are new concepts and we have to establish the lore.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I like that they're taking it's not just as simple, because of course Harry's heard of that shit too. I'm sure Harry knows a million reasons. I mean, back in book 1 and 2 and 3 when he was mentioning things and the laws
Well, that's all
and
great
why
and fine
they
for the
can't.
normies, but I'm a wizard. I can do whatever I want.
Exactly, and how is when he's like, well, if the gatekeeper did it, how? And I do kind of like this explanation that we get, that it is a little bit original because again, it sounds if you're well, imagine your car was going to be stolen. And I'm like, this is such a dumb, you know what I mean? But Harry's like, okay, and he's like, yeah, if you just do it, it changes the world, and everyone goes poof. And he's like, but if he tells you and you just move it, and then instead of getting hijacked by a junkie that kills you, you get hijacked by a professional that leaves you alone. And you're like, oh, I like that distinction between. And again, it was just a slightly more original concept than the ones we've heard before and the ones that where you can just pull out the arguments that exist already. But I was like, I kind of have, and again, it's because, Harry's
Which
like,
still
I don't.
seems paradoxy to me because...
A little bit, but again, depending on what the major are, right? Again, if it's not the car getting stolen, that was important, but the person getting killed, then it's fine that the car still gets stolen.
But there's no way to know. Unless, I guess, you've lived in the future and you know which one. But
that's what I mean,
yes.
right? You have to, whatever.
No,
it's
it
still,
does-
I think that's kind of their point too, is that exactly, which is why we don't fuck with it, because you never know that butterfly wing or a world war.
Learn from Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Martian.
So then, all of this to say is that Harry might just be simply a pawn for the gatekeeper, that whatever the gatekeeper is doing,
Doesn't really have anything to do with
it's
it
barely
at all.
got anything to do with you at all. He just needs to nudge something just enough to ensure that it's a pro and not an amateur doing the carjacking.
Or that it's a pro and not a con.
Or whatever, right? So,
But yeah.
interesting to say where Harry falls in all this. He doesn't know, but if the gatekeeper wants him to look for black magic in Chicago, looking for black magic in Chicago is what he must do.
Right. And it's an interesting way to bring it all back around to that, where he's like, again, that's maybe not what we're looking for at all. Right. But it's kind of like those vision things or whatever, you know, they're like, can you see, you know, how many times the basketball players pass the ball and you don't notice the gorilla crawl, or almost the opposite of that or whatever, right? He's like, as long as you're paying attention, even if it doesn't really matter who the basketball players are, but you're going to see this other thing that happens because that's where your attention is focused, right? So it's kind of a cool way that way, how it sort of comes back around.
So yes, back to Little Chicago. How do we track down the black magic? And I do like, yes, pain is not good enough. Did you just say that?
Yeah, no, we didn't. No,
Yeah.
Not that specific example, but yes, I do. And he's like, oh, well, what about the whole like BDSM community? It was like, thank you for acknowledging other. It's kind of like Harry says when he's talking to Murphy too, and he's like about the mind control and stuff like that. And he's like, okay, so it starts out innocently, and now if you make the cheerleader go out with you, and then he's like, or I guess, you know, the guys, if we're going to be PC about it and stuff. It's like, thanks for just recognizing that other side there, Harry Butcher. You know, let's make sure. It was like, actually, there's a lot of people out there.
I think, yeah, gay marriage had just been legalized right about the time this book was written, published.
Oh,
you know?
perfect. There you go. It was in the topic. But exactly, like, yeah, you think when you start, again, like pennies just aren't important enough to bother with. You're like, oh, yeah, you think about it, there is a lot of pain that goes down every day, from someone getting their toe stubbed to somebody getting mugged to somebody spanking. Like, exactly. I'm like, it's a whole thing out there. I was like, yeah, I like how, you know, and he's like, and again, with fear, right? He's not like, oh, my mom's going to find out I took that cookie. He's like, terrifying fear. Like, let's narrow the parameters. And I'm like, see, that's being smarticle. That's, you're right. Open enough to bring in a lot, but closed enough that, yeah, you're not going to get,
Yeah, terror is our key.
Terror is our, not just. Which is probably good, because you imagine how many people would be like, you know, like, again, like you're afraid they're going to find, like, the birthday surprise or something, and all of a sudden you've got some crazed, like, 6'9" wizard showing up on your doorstep, and you're like, I just didn't want to find her the box of chocolates I got her for her birthday.
So Harry takes a moment to weigh his options and do a risk assessment, and without much surprise is willing to risk his life to do what he thinks is right.
Which I like, too, how Bob is like, could ripple out in alterations that you can't predict, and backlash and consciousness and drive him insane. He's like, which, you know, might not do much to deter other wizards. Might not do much to deter you, but other people. It's like, once again, it's like, okay, you're crazy and you don't mind fucking yourself up, but other people normally wouldn't do this, Harry.
But that's why I like Harry's, you know, justification to himself so much, when he's like, okay, would it kill me to slow down? No, but it will kill someone else.
Right.
It's like, you know, that's very quintessential Harry.
At least he's consistent.
That's why we always gotta act fast, act hard, go, 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 because people are dying in the
Act
meantime.
fast, act hard. Put that on a t-shirt.
This concludes our episode 17.3, Under the Temporal Influence. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnallys.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.